Cool stuff. Ink. Get it? It's ink from a pen. Who writes this? Go to coolstuffinc.com, links in the description, and use code CIMO for 5% off. LSV, welcome back. It has been an eternity since we've had you on the channel to look at some Yu-Gi-Oh cards. How you been? How's life? How are things?
Been great. Yeah, it's been a bit, you know, having twins will do that. So, and though you've been busy yourself, I can say.
Yeah, in a different way.
Yeah, you know, life moves forward one way or another.
It is life. It is life.
But yeah, no, I'm really happy to be here. I'm looking forward to taking a look at some cards.
Good. So I am going to be showing you what is objectively Yu-Gi-Oh's strongest deck of all time. This deck was released in 2002. It is called the Tearlament, and you'll be seeing these cards momentarily. And this deck was so powerful, it had to go through multiple waves of hits, both limitations and bans, for it to sort of rein in the power level of the deck. And so we're going to be showing you some very juiced up cards. And your goal is to decide if you think these cards had to be banned, restricted, or they're perfectly fine at 3 copies. So are you ready?
All right, let's do it.
Oh, I think it said 2022, excuse me, not 2002. That would be the first year of Yu-Gi-Oh, so that's not going to count. Okay, here is your first card.
Tearlaments Merrli. All right, so this is a 2-star, 800 attack, 2000 defense, Aqua effect. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can send the top 3 cards of your deck to the graveyard. If this card is sent to the graveyard by a card effect, except during the damage step, you can fusion summon 1 fusion monster from your extra deck by placing fusion materials mentioned on it from your hand, field, or graveyard, including this card from the graveyard on the bottom of your deck in any order. And you can only use each effect of this once per turn.
What are your first thoughts here?
Well, I assume this card's broken. And most cards that say, like, if you mill this, if you send this to the graveyard by a card, or sorry, send it to the graveyard by a card effect. I guess it's not mill, right? That's like if it's destroyed.
Mill is a card effect. Yep, that does count.
Oh, mill is a card. Yeah, I imagine this card probably got banned, is my guess. Just almost every card in Magic that triggers basically off mill or off just your graveyard has been very good at like kind of like the least, and then broken at the best. And I think this does look like it. I mean, you first of all, you just play this and you start milling yourself so it can hit maybe other copies of it. But also you just mill or discard this and just fusion summon a fusion monster. Seems like that's rife for abuse.
Not to mention that the fusion monster is being summoned by using materials from the graveyard, so you're not even using like real cards. Right. It's like expended resources. So you think banned? You think banned?
I think banned, yeah.
Okay, so as a matter of fact, Tearlaments Merrli was limited. It was restricted to 1 copy. They did not ban it outright. I think they still wanted this deck to be somewhat playable, I guess, but this will give you some insight into some of the other cards you'll be seeing here momentarily. Speaking of cards that that continue to fall in favor of that, let's show you your next card.
Tearlaments Scheiren? Scheiren. Okay. Aqua effect, 1800, 1300. During main phase, you can special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, send 1 monster from your hand to the graveyard, then send the top 2 cards of your deck to the graveyard, and if this card is sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you can fusion summon 1 fusion monster from your deck by placing the fusion materials from your hand, field, or graveyard, you said with the last one. So this is a very similar card, but this one looks almost just better.
You're correct. This one's better. Yep.
Because you can also just special summon this your hand and do some more self milling. I guess if you do sending a monster from your hand to the graveyard is not something you want to do.
That is a card effect, though.
Yeah. Oh, that's a way to trigger your other one.
There you go. There you go.
I mean, I guess if the other one was restricted, I could see this one being restricted then too, but it seems comparable in terms of power level.
And you would be correct, LSV. This Scheiren also got limited, as a matter of fact, because again, I think they still wanted the deck to be playable, but they had to really rein in the power level, and these are like the main core monsters of the deck. There's only really 4 of them, and so if they just completely ban them outright, then like you can't play the deck. So obviously there's still like a financial incentive here to sell the cards and stuff early on, so you know, I think that was like part of their reasoning. But obviously we don't know, so it's hard to say.
This question might be a little bit far afield, but how well has a limited system worked for balance in Yu-Gi-Oh? Like, is it something they still like and use? Like, is it a frequent tool?
We are in Eternal format. We even have semi-restrictions, so cards go from 3 copies to 2, as a matter of fact. And it's, you know, at times it can be a bit rough, but that is essentially how they balance our game. Is our restricted list and banned list has many cards. There's like at least 80 something cards on each of those lists, I would say. But over time, I mean, it's always been a really good balancing tool, for better or for worse. I mean, sometimes they'll release a new ban list every now and then, and it's like, why are they making these changes? Unlike Magic, they don't explain why they make the changes, so we kind of just have to pontificate and just think about why they make the decisions that they do. So
it's okay. The Magic explanations they give are kind of nonsense.
So oh, okay. Great. So what's funny about that is one time they actually did give us explanations for why they hit certain cards, whether banned, restricted, unrestricted, whatever. And I think this was in like 2012. They did it once, and there was such backlash and just like criticism, and then they never did it again.
Yeah, you showed us. We're never going
to That's literally what happened. That's literally what happened. Anyway, let's continue with the trifecta of Tearlaments. Here is your third card.
All right, Tearlaments Havnis. So this is a 1600 1000. When your opponent activates a monster effect on the field, quick effect. You can special summon this card from your hand. If you do, send the top 3 cards of your deck to the graveyard.
Noticing a pattern here.
Yeah. If this card is sent to the graveyard, blah, blah, blah,
same thing
yada,
with
yada,
Fusion Summoning. Yeah, I'll save you the effort.
I'll
save you the effort. Yeah.
I guess I have to go restricted again. This one seems really strong too. These all seem really good. Like, what was their ideal with making all these cards?
It's the best deck ever.
Busted card.
It's the best deck ever. Yep. Is there any like equivalent to this in Magic for the Magic fans out there? Out of curiosity.
One of the decks like that was Affinity. This is back in like 2004.
Okay.
And they basically, Affinity was the best deck. It was like a deck built around like small artifacts getting sacrificed and whatnot. And they banned some cards from Affinity, and then it was still extremely good. And it's like, that's always a little embarrassing. Where you're like, this deck's too good. You ban some cards. It's like, oh, the deck's still too good. Wow, we were really far off. In terms of mechanics, Dredge is by far the best comparison to Tearlaments.
That's what chat's saying too. Yeah.
Yeah, Dredge is a deck where it has all these cards that mill from the top of your deck, and then a bunch of cards that proc when you get milled or from your graveyard. It is the deck least like playing Magic of any deck. Like, because the way it works is you don't play lands, you don't play spells, you don't like play cards out of your hand. All you're trying to do is flip your deck and play cards out of your graveyard, and it's like a very different experience than Magic normally is. And also very strong at various points. It's been the best deck in a bunch of different formats. So yeah, that's probably the closest comparison in terms of mechanics, though Affinity, it felt close in terms of this deck was too good, got a bunch of stuff banned, was still too good.
Got it. But you would be correct. They also limited Havnis, as a matter of fact. So all 3 of the mermaid anime girls got limited. Havnis is very strong. The reason for that, and it's funny because I think Havnis has actually inspired a bit of modern Yu-Gi-Oh card design, because this deck's a couple of years old at this point. Havnis has the ability so that you can start playing on your opponent's first turn, right? Because as soon as they activate a monster effect, you can Havnis, then you start milling, and then we like to call Tearlament the casino that always pays out, because typically, and you'll see later as we get into more and more cards, you get to start just actually doing your turn during your opponent's turn, and that's where this deck gets exceptionally disgusting. And so we'll be showing you some more of those cards here momentarily, but for all 3 of the mermaid waifus, there needs to be a husband, and so there is one in particular. It is Mr. Reinoheart. Go ahead and give him a read.
Tearlaments Reinoheart. It's a 1500 2100, and if this card is normal or special summoned, you can send 1 Tearlaments monster from your deck to the graveyard, except Tearlaments Reinoheart. And if this card is sent to a graveyard by card effect, you can special summon it, and if you do, send 1 Tearlaments card from your hand to the graveyard. Okay, this card seems incredible too. Basically, when you play this, it comes with another Tearlament, and when it goes to the graveyard by a card effect, you can also just get this and get another Tearlament. I guess it gets banished when you summon it that way,
right,
if it were to die. So it has like a finality counter. So, I mean, the game designer in me looks at all these and thinks you should probably have banned all of them. Given the other 3 are limited, I have to guess this one's limited too. It wouldn't make sense to me if it was like 2 different, but on power level, this one also seems completely bannable.
I think you were correct. And the Asian territories would agree with you because they actually restricted the Tearlaments Reinoheart. However, we go by the non-Asian territories for our videos, and they actually decided to keep Reinoheart at 3, as a matter of fact. So unrestricted, as a matter of fact, which is crazy to think about because this card is, like you said, like everything else I've shown you already, batshit crazy. Reinoheart's really good. It's like if you're milling with the casino and you don't hit one of your 3 mermaids, now all of a sudden Reinoheart can get whichever one you haven't used in a turn yet. So I think they like the fact that he does take your normal summon. So, you know, there is that, like, that there is like sort of a balancing kind of mechanism there. However, being able to just like cherry pick the specific Tearlament you want to send to the graveyard is very good. And since they restricted the other 3, I think they figure Reinoheart's kind of like the extra redundancy to like get them out if you need to. That might have been the thinking, but who knows?
So,
who knows?
I just find it kind of funny. It's like, all right, well, these are too good. We'll restrict all 3 of these, but the one that tutors for all of them, the one that goes and searches for all of them.
That's fine. That's fine.
Play as many as you want.
Literally. Oh wait, don't worry. There's still more redundancy. We haven't even got there yet. Okay. So you're about 50% so far, but you're still doing well.
I did want to mention, by the way, since we've last talked, I've actually played Yu-Gi-Oh.
Have you? Tell me about. Talk about that. Let's take a detour. Tell me about that.
I did. We had a work trip, a work summit with a TCG player. You know, that's who I work for, and a lot of the folks in the marketing content department play Yu-Gi-Oh. So. I mean, it's not the biggest thing. I didn't play a tournament or anything like that. But when we were at the bar, you know, they busted out some Edison decks, and I actually got to play. I found it pretty overwhelming. It's a very, very complicated game for sure, but it was fun. It was a lot. I mean, a lot of back and forth, and both decks were doing things effectively on turn 1 and 0. It felt like, but that's just like kind of how it works.
That's Yu-Gi-Oh. That's Yu-Gi-Oh. Thankfully, they taught you Edison and not actual modern Yu-Gi-Oh, because those are like 2 different games, to be honest. So Edison, I feel like, is the best gateway to teach people. We actually had Ash Lizzle on not too long ago, and I taught her Edison, and she messaged me after the fact. I had so much fun. So I mean, all the Magic players, I guess, are learning Yu-Gi-Oh now. It's fun. Yeah, do you remember what deck you played by chance? Like, does anything?
It had
If you could describe the cards too, I might be able to help.
Yeah, it was one of the cards you actually showed me. It's the guy when you take damage, you get to play him Gors or something like that.
Oh, Gors.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
very powerful card. Every deck plays that in Edison though. So
they had Gors in their deck, and I remember not attacking them on one turn and feeling smart about it.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. Yeah, no, Gors is like a actual game deciding card, so that's very smart. So you had Gors. Any other cards stick out? I'm just curious, like what deck they had you play.
Yeah, I was playing. Their deck also had a bunch of like mechs or robots that were like summoning each other.
Okay.
Machina, yeah.
Probably Machina.
And I don't remember exactly what I had going on.
Did you have like birds by chance?
No.
Or interesting.
But
that's okay. That's fine. We
know
what one of the decks was.
It was like a self-mill deck, and
were you playing like plants by chance?
It wasn't plants either. I go, like I said, I don't remember the actual cards.
Sure, that's fine. That's fine. I was just trying. I was curious what they had you play.
Lightsworn.
Oh, Lightsworn.
I saw someone in the chat. Perfect. Yes, that's exactly what it was. So
yeah,
it was fun.
Very good deck. Very good deck. It's very funny. A lot of people say that like Lightsworn walked so Tearlaments could run, because this is like this is the Lightsworn deck everyone always wished it was, because Lightsworn always felt so bad because if your mills were bad, like that was kind of like dependent on how good the deck was. But this deck always pays out. Sick always pays out.
Yeah, that I do remember that, just milling and hoping to hit the things.
You hit like the wolf that can special summon itself and different things like that. Yeah, and then you have your big payoff in Judgment Dragon. It's a very fun deck. Anyway, side tangent aside, let's show you some of these boss monsters that you're fusion summoning with the mermaid girls. So here is your next card.
Tearlaments Kitkallos. So it's a fusion. It requires a Tearlaments monster and an Aqua monster. If this card is special summoned, you can take one Tearlaments card from your deck and either add it to your hand or send it to the graveyard. You can target one monster you control, special summon one Tearlaments monster from your hand or graveyard, and if you do, send the targeted monster to the graveyard. If this card is sent to the graveyard by card effect, you can send the top 5 cards to the graveyard, and you can only use each effect once per turn.
As a reminder, so fusion summoning, you take the materials, in this case from your graveyard, and you put them on the bottom of your deck to play this. So any Tearlaments monster that you've seen thus far, and also any Aqua monster, which is every one of the mermaid girls, just not Reinoheart, because he's a warrior.
Well, I mean, it also seems like this deck does such a job of filling its graveyard that it's not that's not really going to be too big of an issue.
Of course not. No.
And so if this is sent to the graveyard by card effect, you just get to mill for 5. You don't get to summon this or anything.
Correct. Yep.
This card looks strong. I certainly think it's a big part of the deck. My guess is this wasn't limited or banned.
Okay.
Just as this is kind of a big payoff. It's not like you would necessarily. Well, I guess you might play a ton of these actually just because of the mill 5. That part seems really strong too.
Yep. That is technically something you could do. So you think it's totally fine?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Big miss here. Kitkallos is banned actually.
Wow.
A lot of people would say this was like the best card in the entire deck. The reason is because, especially in tandem with Merrli, Merrli is the card that you could summon off Kitkallos and then send the Kitkallos itself to the graveyard. So then you mill 8. And then if you're playing because Merrli mills 3 and Kitkallos mills 5. So when you consider the fact that you have all these, you have 3 of each of the mermaid girls, prior to them being restricted, the chances of you hitting, and again, there's still cards I haven't shown you yet that you want to hit, is so high that this was like the starting play. You would typically like do a thing, like maybe mill some cards, try to make a Kitkallos as your first play, and then milling 8 is 25% of your deck basically. So like you're guaranteed to hit something really good. So then you play like
2 more things or whatever.
Exactly. So then you can just like it enables just everything. Exactly. So she's sort of like the linchpin that kind of like just really got the deck going. And very frustrating card. I'll be honest. Very frustrating card. I can imagine. Yeah.
All right. Fair enough. This card looks like it was way too good then.
It was. And not to mention, there was also a card that could immediately just summon this card from the extra deck without fusion summoning. So that was like, if you could do that, you were on cloud 9. It was great. Let's show you the upgraded version of Kitkallos. Here you go.
All right, Tearlaments Rulkallos. So this takes a Kitkallos and a Tearlaments monster.
Right, but remember, if Kitkallos is in the graveyard, you can just put it back into your deck. So it basically doesn't matter.
Other aqua monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle. You only use each of the following effects of Tearlaments Rulkallos once per turn. When your opponent activates a card or effect that includes an effect that special summons a monster, you can negate the activation and destroy it. Then send 1 Tearlaments card from your hand or face up on field to the graveyard. If this fusion summon card is sent by a card effect, you can special summon this card. What does that mean exactly?
Which part?
When it says if this fusion summon card is sent by a card effect.
Great question. So when you first summon Rulkallos, you are going to be fusion summoning her. Let's say you use her effect to negate, some effect that special summons a monster. And it says send 1 Tearlaments card from your hand or face up field to the graveyard. You can send herself, and then that last effect will trigger because she sends herself to the graveyard by card effect, and she'll resurrect herself. However, she's no longer considered to be fusion summoned this second time because she was special summoned from the graveyard. So it's not considered, she's no longer identified as being a fusion summoned monster. So you get to do that effect 1 time, basically, where she comes back from the dead.
All right, because then it's no longer a fusion summoned card.
Correct, right. It's still a fusion monster, but it was not fusion summoned to the field, if that makes sense.
I mean, I guess I'll go with limited on this.
Okay.
This also just doesn't look like one you necessarily want a ton of copies of anyway. It does seem like a strong card. I mean, all these cards work together so incredibly well.
Right?
I guess I'll guess limited, but I'm kind of torn between that and nothing at all, even despite just missing on Tearlaments Kitkallos with the same answer.
Okay.
But I'll go with limited.
You should have gone with your other gut, LSV, because Rulkallos is totally fine at 3 copies. What's funny is that it's like you said, you don't want to play a lot of copies of this anyway. And so people would only really play 1 Rulkallos. So it kind of like self-limited itself because it really just, you didn't need more copies. So like 1 was totally fine. So there was really no need for, no one was playing 3 of this card in their extra deck. So it was a card that they never really had to touch. Yeah. So it was funny. You had it and then you just like, it's limited. It's fine. So you were close. You were very close. I'll give you a half point for that one. Okay. Last of the fusion baddies. This one is kind of ridiculous. Here you go.
Tearlaments Kaleido-Heart. So this is a 3,000, and it's a fusion of Tearlaments Reinoheart and 2 aqua monsters.
So a bit more of a commitment.
And this cannot be used as fusion material. If this card is special summoned, or if an aqua monster is set to your graveyard by card effect with cards on the field, you can target 1 card your opponent controls, shuffle into their deck. That seems like a really good way to kill someone.
That is.
If this card is sent to the graveyard by card effect, you can special summon it, and if you do, send 1 Tearlaments card from your deck to the graveyard. Man, I guess I would have to go with limited again on this.
Okay.
This seems, whenever you have the things that have like a lot of conditions like this, taking Tearlaments Reinoheart and 2 aqua monsters, I am tempted to say it wasn't restricted in any way. Like you could just play as 3 copies if you want. The last part is if this card is sent to the graveyard card effect, you can special summon it and send a Tearlaments card from your deck to the graveyard. That just seems like another part of like the loop here. So I guess I'm gonna guess limit.
Notably, with that effect, you can do that every turn. So if you don't find a way to kill him off, he'll just keep coming back. It's not like Rulkallos where it's only once.
I'm gonna guess limited. It seems like a pretty obnoxious card to have. To deal with many copies of, but. Well, we'll see. These Tearlaments cards are tricky.
They are tricky, and they are obnoxious. And unfortunately, you were so close yet again. Kaleido-Heart is totally fine at 3 copies. Similar to Rulkallos, typically you only played 1 Kaleido-Heart because 1 was really all you needed, to be honest with you. Gotcha. And on top of it, too, something to keep in mind is that when they're fusion summoning like these Tearlament effects, although to be fair, this one can't be used as fusion material, I will say there are other ways to get Kaleido-Heart back into your extra deck so that you can resummon it that aren't fusion summoning. So with that in mind, the fact that you have this recyclability aspect as well, you'll see that here momentarily, that you only really needed the 1 because if you had the 1, it was in the graveyard, you could just put it back and just resummon it that way. So again, sort of like a self-regulating card in a way. And also the extra deck only has 15 slots. So like you have to be mindful of, okay, you know, am I really going to use the second Kaleido-Heart? Probably not. So it was totally fine. It's totally fine. So your logic is spot on. Your logic is spot on though. So I appreciate it. Okay.
Just need to follow up.
You do. That's true. But you have a chance to redeem yourself. We still have a few cards left to get through here. Okay. Next card. Let's show you a spell card. I'll give you a bit of a primer here before we get into it. This is a field spell. So a field spell sort of works like an enchantment. It kind of just stays out on the field until someone interacts with it in some way or another. So go ahead and give it a read.
So this is a Primeval Planet Perlereino.
Yep.
When this card is activated, you can add 1 Tearlaments monster or 1 Visa's Starfrost from your deck to your hand.
You can ignore the Visa's part. That's just part of the lore.
Sure. Fusion monsters and Tearlaments monsters you control gain 500 attack. If a Tearlament monster you control in your graveyard is shuffled into the deck or extra deck, except during the damage step, you can target 1 card on the field and destroy it. You can only use this effect once per turn, and you can only activate this once per turn. So you have this, you activate it, and you get it, and you can go tutor for a Tearlaments monster.
Because we need more tutors, right?
Right. It also buffs all your Tearlaments monsters.
Yep.
And your fusion monsters. And if one of your things is shuffled in, so that would be a card effect of yours or theirs, either one, right?
Correct. And that also includes the fusion summoning effects of the Tearlaments that you saw previously. So it's just added value on top of value. It's crazy.
I guess my guess is you can play 3 copies of this. The fact that it has a restriction of you can only activate 1 per turn means that I don't know that you'd necessarily want a ton of these anyways.
Sure. That's definitely one of Yu-Gi-Oh's biggest balancing mechanisms is that things have a once per turn clause on them.
I think that there is a chance. Yeah, I'm gonna guess that you could play 3 copies of this. Is it good? But I'm feeling like it's gonna be limited now. Like I've been exactly wrong each time. So, but I'll guess unrestricted.
Well, it is limited, but in the Asian territories, you are correct. It is unlimited for us here in the non-Asian territories, which is what we care about for the purposes of our channel. Yeah, it's very funny seeing how they decide to make the limitations or the bans different between the 2 territories, because over there it's limited to 1, but we can play 3 copies of it. I think it's similar to the Reinoheart mindset, is that, again, they limited the 3 biggest offenders, which are Merrli, Scheiren, and Havnis, just because those are the ways to fusion summon. And so basically it's like, okay, you get 1 of each, you get 3 fusion summons a turn. If you hit all 3, great. But now it's really hard to do that because you only have 1 of each copy. So I think Perlereino, yes, it's more redundancy, but I think they still, like I said, wanted to make the deck semi-playable. And again, you know, there's the financial motivation that they don't want to just completely kill the deck outright. So it's a really cool card. It's maybe one of the most powerful field spells they've ever printed in the game. It's very good. It's funny enough, too, the 500 attack gain is actually very relevant, especially with the mirror match, because basically when this deck was at full power and this was like the only deck to play, we call it a tier 0 format. If you were playing this deck, you were just losing. If your opponent has the field spell and you don't, it is a huge disadvantage because your monsters can just hit over theirs, and that's a way to kill the monsters so that they don't go to the graveyard by a card effect. So combat was actually very relevant in that respect. Being able to just pop their stuff when you fusion summon and shuffle stuff back, or like just do anything like that. Just value on top of value on top of value. Just a really devastatingly good card. And you got it right, so that's great. Here is your next one. This is a continuous spell. This is similar to a field spell, except field spells have like their own designated zone where you can only have one of it out at a time. This you could have, multiple copies if you wanted to.
All right, Tearlaments Scream spell card. If a monster or monsters is normal or special summoned and you control a Tearlaments monster or Visa's Starfrost, except during the damage step, you can send the top 3 cards of your deck to your graveyard. Also, for the rest of your turn, the rest of this turn, all monsters your opponent controls lose 500 attack. And if this card is sent to the graveyard by card effect, you can add 1 Tearlaments trap from your deck to your hand, and you can only use this once per turn.
Yep, so even the spells, when they are milled to the graveyard, get you value. Yep.
they just want to make sure you just didn't miss.
I'm telling you, it's the casino that always pays out. That's why people love this deck.
So if you have this and they summon a monster, it could be your monster or their monster.
That is correct. That is correct.
Yeah.
As long as you control a tier element, it doesn't matter who summoned the monster. Yes.
This looks strong to me.
Because you need more milling, right?
Yeah, my guess is that you can play 3 copies of this, though it does seem like a strong card. It doesn't seem as strong as the Primeval Planet, but it still seems like this has a pretty good effect. So you have this, you can send the top 3, and then they lose 500 attack, and then when this goes away, you can get 1 Tearlaments trap, which I assume there's some decent ones of those.
You will be seeing one momentarily.
Yeah, so I think that you could. This is probably unrestricted.
And you would be correct. 2 in a row. So it's funny because throughout the process of people kind of like labbing this deck out, Scream was sort of overlooked in the beginning. And then people realized, what the fuck are we doing? Because this just says mill 3 more cards. And not to mention you could do that on the opponent's turn as well. So again, that aspect of being able to play on the opponent's turn was just so valuable, and that's like part of the reason why this deck was so strong. Not to mention, again, similar to the 500 attack gain from the planet, the 500 attack loss on Scream, especially if you add the both together, was really good at just protecting your board in the mirror match specifically, because if you drain them with Scream, now all of a sudden their stuff is just smaller and they can't hit over your stuff, and that's like a way for them to just sort of just get easy +1s in terms of value. So, Scream was just incredible, and then it also searches the trap card, so it's like, even if you mill it, it doesn't matter, you still get value off of it, and it's just more stuff to hit in the milling category. So, very good card. Very, very good card. And speaking of...
looks strong.
It does. It's very strong. People were maxing this card out at 3 copies, actually, when they figured out how good it was. Now, you can see a trap card. So here you go.
Tearlaments Sulliek. What are Tearlaments anyway?
So that's like the mermaid ladies. That's just like their archetype, if you will. Similar to like, yeah, that's just what they call them. We just call them anime mermaids. That's all they are.
So this is a Tearlaments trap. If you control a Tearlaments monster or Visa's Starfrost, I need to see what this Visa Starfrost card is.
And I will let you know that card is bad and does not apply to this archetype. That's why we ignore it.
No, but I'm just curious. If you control a Tearlaments monster or Visa Starfrost, you can target 1 effect monster your opponent controls, negate its effects, then send 1 monster you control to the graveyard. If this card is sent to your graveyard by card effect, you can go get a Tearlaments monster from your deck to your hand. You can negate an effect monster of theirs, but then you have to send one of your monsters to the graveyard. If you don't have a monster, that just doesn't happen.
Correct. You do have to send a monster you control to the graveyard. So if you don't have a monster to send, you can't use this. Something else I should mention too is that this is a continuous trap. So again, similar to an enchantment, this will stay out on the field. So you can do this multiple times.
The fact that when you mill this, you can go search up a Tearlaments monster.
It always pays out. It always pays out.
I kind of think this might have been limited too, just because of the tutor aspect. I guess, even if it's not, part of the reason I think it could be is if you're limiting cards, like the other Tearlaments, like Havnis or Merrli or whatever, but then giving you access to 12 copies of things that tutor up a Tearlament, it didn't really do that much to limit them. So it kind of makes sense to me they might have limited one of the tutors too, but
okay.
I have low confidence on this one. I'm going to guess limited.
All right, and you would be, unfortunately, incorrect. Sulliek is totally fine at 3 copies. People would play anywhere from... they wouldn't play the full 3. I'd say they play 1 to 2. I'd say 1 was typically the most common. There's another Tearlament trap that I'm not going to show you because it's like we got too many cards to go through. But it was not as played as much as Sulliek, because Sulliek, like I said, It's a way to tutor up another tier monster. So again, if you mill it, you get value, which is just absurd. And then if you don't mill it, typically this is the card you would, either if you mill a Scream, you can search this, but also when you summon your Kitkallos, Kitkallos lets you add any Tearlaments card from your deck to your hand, not specifically monster. Typically, if you don't already have Sulliek access, you would search Sulliek on your first turn, so that way you have a way to interrupt your opponent during their turn. And again, sending the opponent's monster, or so, excuse me, sending your monster you control to the graveyard isn't necessarily a downside, because if it's one of the 3 mermaids, then they're going to trigger a fusion summon. If it's, for instance, if it's Kitkallos, then it's just going to mill you 5 cards you can play on the opponent's turn. If it's Rulkallos, it'll just special summon itself back out. Same thing with Kaleido-Heart. So, like, you typically, even though you're sending a card you control to the graveyard, it's getting some value in some way anyway, that it, like, doesn't matter. It's just more of a restriction. You need to have the card out in the first place. But it is a very, very good trap card. And again, you only need to play 1 or 2 of it, because you can search it out with, you know, Scream or Kitkallos or anything else. So it's not something you need to, like, hope that you just draw.
This whole deck seems extremely consistent. Every card tutors for every other card.
That's why it's considered the best deck in Yu-Gi-Oh history, is that the consistency was just unmatched. There was just no deck that could keep up with how consistent your game plan was with this deck. Okay, so that is it for the Tearlaments cards. But what was interesting was that historically, there was another set that was released not long after the set that the Tearlaments cards all debuted. All those cards I showed you were in the same set. They came out with another set immediately after, and these are what we call the Ishizu cards. They're not named that, but there's a character in the show named Ishizu, and she played these cards. They got retrained, so they're not the ones that she played. They're, like, way better versions of them. So the full power version of this deck was called Ishizu Tearlaments, and you'll see why momentarily when you read some of these cards. I'm going to apologize. There's a lot of text on these, so
Gage is
here
going
you go.
to shit.
All right, Kelbeck, the Ancient Vanguard, 1500, 1800. It's a fairy / effect. If a card or cards is sent from the hand or deck to your opponent's graveyard, except during the damage step, you can target 1 special summon monster your opponent controls. Special summon this card from your hand, then return that monster to the hand. If this card is sent from the hand or deck to the graveyard, you can activate this effect. Each player sends the top 5 card of their deck to the graveyard, or their entire deck of less than 5. Funny that they had to spell that out.
Yeah, and I will stop there. You can ignore the last part. There's this card called Exchange of the Spirit that if it's in your graveyard, you get a bonus effect, but decks very rarely played that card. So I'm just going to help save you the reading, and you can just stop there.
Basically, if a card is sent from the hand or deck to your opponent's graveyard, so if they used like a self-mill card, you can target a special summon monster your opponent controls. You special summon this and bounce theirs. And if this is milled, you can activate this effect. This card seems really crazy. It mills you both for 5, which is, like, not necessarily upside, but you can only use this once per turn, so you don't get to, like, summon this, mill 5, hit another one of these, do it again. Like, this doesn't go completely nuts. But this seems like a limited card to me. This card seems pretty crazy.
Yeah, Kelbeck is fucking nuts. This card is extremely good, so much so that it's banned, actually.
It got straight banned.
It got straight banned. So the effect to interrupt your opponent. So a very, a very common play pattern with this card is if your opponent goes to summon one of their, like, say, like a Scheiren, or for instance, or a Kitkallos. If they milled at some point, you can activate Kelbeck, summon the Kelbeck, bounce that back, and that may stop them from a fusion summon, or puts the Kitkallos back in the extra deck so that it doesn't mill 5 if it goes to the graveyard. So really cool disruption tool there. But then also the fact that you make both players mill 5, that may sound bad in the mirror match specifically. It is actually, most of the time, you come out slightly ahead, and the reason for that is because of turn player priority, and you get to sort of sequence what effects you want to put on the stack before your opponent does. So you sort of have an edge there. And so even in the mirror match, people would play this card at max copies that were legal because it was just still another way to get your deck going. It was super consistent, and not to mention, if you played against a deck that was not Ishizu Tearlaments, they just straight up had 0 chance to beat you because of how many mill cards you have and how often the casino pays out. So this just further reinforced how good the deck was. And yeah, not to mention
that card looks crazy.
Not to mention there is more. So here is your next one.
All right, this is Agido, the Ancient Sentinel. So
Agido.
This is a fairy effect. It's 1500, 1300. If a card is sent from the hand or deck to its graveyard, except during the damage step, you can special summon this card from your hand, and then special summon one level 4 Earth Fairy monster from your graveyard, except this,
which is like Kelbeck. All these are Earth Fairies, so just any of them.
Yeah.
Yep.
If this card is sent from your hand or deck to the graveyard, you can activate this effect. Each player sends the top 5 cards of their deck to the graveyard,
and you can stop there.
Exchange of spirit.
You can stop there.
That thing.
Yeah. So it was funny when you were like, "Oh, you can't hit another Kelbeck and mill another 5." Well, there's a different card that lets you do that.
This, instead of bouncing their thing, this gets this and then another one,
Correct.
another Earth Fairy monster.
Correct.
Which could be a Kelbeck.
Correct. And it's just another mill for 5.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I wanted to say limited, but you know what? I'm going to say this was banned. If Kelbeck was banned, then I guess I'm just going to have to go with the same guess for Agido here.
And you would be correct, LSV. This card is equally as disgusting. I would say, it's kind of hard to say. I think Kelbeck's probably better between the two, but the fact that both mill you 5 is all you care about, honestly. The first effect for both of these can come up, but for the most part, you just want to mill either of them just so you can just start milling everything. So the fact that you can go hypothetically, right? I mentioned earlier about the Merrli Kitkallos play that mills you for 8. Oh, look, now you milled a Kelbeck. Now you mill another 5. Oh, look, now you milled an Agido, so you mill another 5. Not to mention, if you're in the mirror match and you're milling both players for 5, you might hit their Agido or Kelbeck, and then they mill both players for 5 again. So, like, because they want to get their deck going. So, like, the amount of milling is just unbelievable and is, like, never been seen before in Yu-Gi-Oh! At this level. It's absolutely unserved. Which is why this card had to get banned, because it was just... It accelerated what this deck did just to a degree that no deck could keep up with it. And I think people were very happy when these cards got banned.
I will say that at least in Magic, the cards that milled you were not also the cards that jumped out of your graveyard. They at least split those up a little bit, as opposed to here where it's like, no, this mills and then just procs when it mills. Yep. So it's like, oh, okay, it all does it in one. Sure.
Welcome to Yu-Gi-Oh, my friend. Welcome to Yu-Gi-Oh. Okay, so there's 2 more Ishizu cards here, and these are what we call the Shufflers, and you'll understand why that is when you read this effect.
Okay, Mudora, the Sword Oracle. So it's a 1500, 1800 fairy effect. You can discard one other Earth Fairy monster, special summon this card from your hand, then you can place one Gravekeeper's Trap from your deck face up.
Yeah.
Quick effect. You can banish this card from your field or graveyard, then target up to 3 cards in any graveyard, or up to 5 if you have Exchange of the Spirit. Shuffle them into your deck, and you can only use this once per turn. Okay, yeah. So this is also a classic. When you're milling yourself, you do want some sort of safety valve, and this lets you do that by getting to shuffle some cards in your graveyard or any graveyard. So you can also kind of mess with them if they've got things in their graveyard that you would rather shuffle into their deck.
I'm also going to tell you from a gameplay perspective, because this may not be intuitive for you. If your opponent activates one of the Tearlaments Mermaids to fusion summon, that effect goes on the stack. You can chain your Mudora or put Mudora on the stack to shuffle back the Tearlaments monster that's activating its effect, and the fusion summon doesn't happen because it has to use itself as part of the material for the summon. So it's also a way, again, in the mirror match to disrupt your opponent and slow them down from being able to do their crazy stuff.
Okay, I was going to guess that it was unrestricted, but the fact that it also gets to kind of snipe theirs makes me feel like it maybe was limited because it's kind of nonsense that you could just have... Like, whoever hits more of these might just end up with a huge advantage, so restricting to one could make sense. So I'm going to guess limited.
Yeah, and this was a card that not only could you disrupt your opponent, but like I mentioned earlier, you can put your resources back as well. So that's why you only needed like the one Kaleido-Heart, the one Rulkallos, because let's say you're disrupting your opponent's fusion summon, you get rid of one or 2 of their cards. Maybe you don't need to get rid of a 3rd card, right? You can pick one of the cards in your graveyard and 2 of your opponent's cards and do both.
Oh, wow. You can also split it.
You can split it. Yeah, it doesn't have to be one player or the other. So that was like another just really strong advantage of this card. And you're correct. They did, in fact, limit Mudora. Another thing you may miss as well is that you can just go as the first action of your turn, discard Agido or Kelbeck, summon Mudora, and that already starts the milling 5. So that's before you even get to Tearlaments half of your deck. right?
That's
so
funny.
that combination as well, which I granted the other two got banned, was another just really potent way to just get the mill engine online. And not to mention at that point, not only both players milling for 5, but Mudora can send itself from the field to get banished to shuffle stuff back as well. So then if your opponent does hit something with their 5 mills, Mudora can shuffle it back while your stuff is free to resolve. So, yeah, a lot of...
Yeah, it seems super obnoxious.
Very obnoxious, and a lot of just, like, stuff that happens on the stack when all these mills happen. Like, it would not be uncommon to see, like, 8 to 10 cards on the stack trying to resolve because of how many effects are going off. It was kind of overwhelming, to be honest. And so, let us show you the last of the Ishizu cards. This is the 4th and final one, and it is also a shuffler.
Keldo, the Sacred Protector. 1200, 1600 fairy effect. You can discard one other Earth Fairy monster, special summon this card from your hand, then add a 1 exchange of the spirit or 1 card that mentions it from your deck to your hand. Quick effect. You can banish this card from your field or graveyard, then up target to 3 cards in any graveyards, or up to 5 if exchange of spirit, and shuffle them in.
It's just another Mudora, basically.
Yeah, so...
A little bit different, but...
It wouldn't really make too much sense to me to limit Mudora and not Keldo, so I guess I'm going to have to guess that it's also limited.
Sure.
Just because it's the main effect is the banish part to shuffle, and that just seems like it's the same effect there.
And you would be correct. They did, in fact, limit both of the shufflers to a singular copy. Like you said, it was very obnoxious. Seeing when you mill just like multiple shufflers. And the nice thing is you can only use each of them once per turn. So there were some instances where someone would mill like multiple Mudora or multiple Keldo, and they can only use one of it that turn. So it like sort of gave you like, oh, okay, like I know they use that, so I can actually like go through with my plays. But the fact that we have yet another redundant piece that also is like an Earth Fairy that can special summon itself, just exceptionally good card. Granted, it wasn't the Miller strength, but I mean, being able to just act as a interruption and also a way to recycle your resources to keep playing was incredibly good. And sometimes, like with the recycling effect, like you would give yourself good cards just to put back into your main deck to either re-tutor back out, or like there was just a lot of like flexibility with these shuffle back effects. And we've never really, there's only been like a couple of cards that have that sort of flexibility in that modality. So it's really nice to see. Okay, I got 2 left for you here. Since we are talking about the Earth Fairies, let's go ahead and show you this card.
Herald of Orange Light. All right, it's a 300, 500 little guy. When your opponent activates a monster effect, quick effect, you can send this card and one other fairy monster from your hand to the graveyard, negate the activation, and destroy it. Oh, wow. This is kind of like a Force of Will.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
It's, you have this in hand, and then you get to discard this and another fairy from your hand to the graveyard to stop their activation and destroy whatever was being activated. Well, this card seems really strong.
Not to mention, if you send Kelbeck or Agido, you get to mill 5.
Yeah, I have to guess this card is limited. It could be banned, actually. Like, these cards are deceptively strong.
They
just
are.
A 0-mana counter.
Yep.
You know, at instant speed, just not from the board, anything like that. I guess everything in Yu-Gi-Oh! 0 mana.
I mean, yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
It just comes out of your hand for free. You have to just discard something, which often can be an upside. So I'm going to guess limited on Herald of Orange Light, especially because games where your opponent draws multiples of these and gets to use them sounds like they're really obnoxious.
And you would be correct, as a matter of fact, if we were living in the Asian territories. But they actually did limit this card. They did actually limit this card in both territories.
I feel like I should get credit if I was right in either territory, but not get penalized for being wrong in either territory.
Yeah, no. You were right, actually. So this card did, in fact, get limited. It's unlimited now because Tearlaments is kind of like, it's been power crept, which is crazy to think. Yeah, we're at the point now where Herald of Orange Light did, in fact, get limited for a short time, but it's back now at 3 copies, which is why at first I was like, this card's at 3? No, they limited it. They 100% limited it. So they did limit it to a single copy, so you are correct. It is just being able to go negate and destroy an opposing play and then mill 5 to start playing the game. It was just another crazy enabler that allowed you to play the game, especially if you lost the die roll to go first, right? And so this was something that a lot of people tried to take advantage of. You have hypothetically 12 Earth Fairies that you can use because each Keldo, Mudora, Agido, and Kelbeck would be at 3 copies, presumably. And so you had plenty of, and you could also Herald with a Herald because it is another fairy monster. So like you have like redundant copies of that you could use if you absolutely had to, not that you really wanted to. But also heralding away a shuffler was good because then, okay, you stop your opponent's play. If they have a follow-up, now your shuffler can be used to interact to stop their... Exactly. So very, very deceptively good card. Actually sees play in the Edison format, as a matter of fact, as well, in some of the fairy decks. So it's a very old card, as a matter of fact. So it's cool that it got to see some... it's the fun of the Eternal format, right? Sometimes super old cards get their time in the spotlight. Okay, I got one more for you, and then I'll show you Visas for fun, because you were curious. But here's your last one, and this sort of plays into the fact that all of the shufflers and millers are level 4.
Abyss Dweller. This is a dark card. 1700, 1400, Sea Serpent, XYZ effect. 2 level 4 monsters. Well, this card has an XYZ material that was originally water, or attached that was originally water. All water monsters you control gain 500 attack. Once per turn, during either player's turn, you can detach one XYZ material from this card. Card effects that activate in your opponent's graveyard cannot be activated this turn. Holy moly. Okay.
Yep. So, to remind you in case you forgot, so how an Xyz monster works is, if you have 2 level 4 monsters on the field, you literally stack them on top of each other and then go into your extra deck and then put the Abyss Dweller on top of that stack. So those 2 cards underneath it become materials to be used for his effect. So
you're going to want to eat some water monsters here in order for it to get the 500 attack. I mean, this card seems really strong. Like, it has a pretty big cost to play, right? It looks like you have to have 2 things in play to play it, but... But
everything's free, so...
Yeah, but... So then... And it comes with 2 material attached, right? So you basically gets 2 shots to turn off their graveyard.
If it survives, yeah. Because it is a sorcery speed... I'm sorry, it is a instant speed effect to do that. Excuse me.
This is like a very strong countermeasure, but it's a little bit clunky, and I'm going to guess unrestricted. I do think the card, it looks like a good counterplay to this deck, but I don't know that you would want it to be restricted in that case.
Sure.
Or limited.
And you would be... correct that it is unrestricted, but they actually banned it relatively recently, as a matter of fact. This card is it's kind of old. I think it's like 2012, 2013, I want to say. So it's been around for a while. Against Tearlaments specifically, if you shut off their ability to activate effects in the graveyard, this means they can't fusion summon. This means stuff can't get resurrected. This means that the millers won't trigger. There's a whole host of things that Abyss Dweller shuts off. Basically, the degenerate thing that people tried to do was try to set up Abyss Dweller as best they could, because if they could Abyss Dweller their opponent and their opponent didn't have Herald of Orange Light or something to respond to it to negate it, they basically were in a very winning position, because being able to shut off the opponent's graveyard, but you can... Imagine going Abyss Dweller and then doing the mill 5 effect of Agido, and your opponent doesn't get to get anything off of it, but you can trigger like 4 different effects. The tempo swing from Abyss Dweller was just insurmountable, and the best players in the game would Abyss Dweller, and then if the opponent even outed the Abyss Dweller, they would use the Shufflers to put Abyss Dweller back into their extra deck and resummon it just to keep them under an Abyss Dweller lock. This card's only gotten better over time, and it's gotten to the point where it's gotten very degenerate that they actually chose to ban it very recently. Which a lot of people wanted it banned during Tearlament format specifically because they felt that kind of ruined the fun of it. Because it's like, oh, they summon Abyss Dweller, I don't have an out, I kind of just lose. Wasn't always the case, but it was very much a nail in the coffin type of card. That's like, if you saw it, it was not good. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I can see that.
Yeah, very strong floodgate effect for sure. Okay, so that's it. I would say we did pretty well. I will show you as a bonus. You get to see Visa Starfrost here. You could read him if you want. He's not very particularly special, but he's part of the lore of the archetype, so that's why they included him in some of the cards.
So it's a reasonably sized monster that if it's in your hand, you can destroy a monster that you control with a different type and attribute, and then you special summon this. Mm-hmm. I see. And then when it beats something in battle, you can make it stronger attack or defense. Sure, this doesn't do anything broken.
It's fine. Like there was like a deck that played him that was like okay. He was never particularly good, and that's why they just chose not to play him. He's also a tuner, so like for synchro plays, there was stuff you could do, but he was very mid by comparison to some of the cards that I just showed you. So, what do you think about the strongest Yu-Gi-Oh deck ever? LSV.
I mean, it looks super busted. Like all the cards chained together, they all play out of your graveyard. You have counterplay out of your graveyard with like the reshuffles and you know, things like Kelbeck and Agido just chaining into it. It just seems ridiculous, like all of this. And you can even play at instant speed, where sometimes, like I don't know if you know anything about Flesh and Blood, but there's one of the heroes, Kano is a wizard, and one of the things he does is it kind of lets you play at instant speed, which most of the heroes don't get to do. So that can always be a pretty big upending of like how the game normally goes, and it doesn't help that all the cards here just seem incredibly busted just regardless of the speed at which they're played. So yeah, very cool deck. I'm glad you showed me that.
Yeah, it's like I said, a lot of people in chat liken this to like vintage dredge is what they were saying, and it was definitely it was a very polarizing time for Yu-Gi-Oh! Because I would say the majority of people hated that this deck existed, because it was really, realistically, if you were playing competitively, if you weren't playing this deck, you were not going to win. There was no shot. So I don't remember the exact order, but so all these bans and limitations didn't happen at once. So what happened was the first ban list came around and they hit like a couple things, and then the second ban list came around and they hit more. And there's a really funny image. I should try to find it for you, actually. It's where they show the full deck sort of laid out in one of the like the simulators, like Arena, for instance, and it's showing how many hits this deck incurred to show like what they had to do to sort of like put this deck in its place. Oh, here we go. Here's a good list. This isn't like this is one from Japan, so their list was a little bit different. But just for fun, you could take a look at this and see. All the X's are like how many hits the deck took for it to like get reined in terms of its power level.
like 15% of the deck remained.
Basically,
like
yeah,
that.
basically. And that was it. Funny enough, even after all that, it was still arguably like a tier 2 deck not long after that. So like some people would still, because
Max C that they like semi-limited.
yeah. So this is in Japan, Max C is still legal, so that's why like they got to play with Max C. So that's why this list looks different. But like there's equivalent lists for the non-Asian territories as well that just look absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, it's very funny seeing it like laid out like this for sure. But thank you so much for coming back on. The fans really wanted me to show you this deck in particular, just because again, it's just absolutely ridiculous, and they're so happy to see you back, so thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me back, and I'm sure I'll be chatting with you in the future here.
So guys, that's gonna wrap it up for another video. I really hope you all enjoyed. Let's go ahead and shout out the patrons for all their continued support. So shout out to Shout1317, Tim00x3, MBT Play Medolce, Moto, Cameron L. Smith, The Synchro Guy, Pony Stark, Little Fadeleaf, Dan the Man Hoban, Draconic, Daniel Howell, Brian Denser of Class 7, Dylan Rare Hunter, JW11860, Flannel Daddy, literally all of the guinea pigs, MBT canceled by a community soon, canceled by a committee soon, canceled by all players soon, MBT and Nimnim's 1 Boxer Brief Fueled Night of Passion, Electrician of the Ice Barrier, The Nova 129, Chris Adams, and Pink Frappe. Thank you again so much, and we will see you next time.